How's it going, anime lovers? My name is David, and today I'll be giving some unsolicited advice to Netflix about their live-action anime adaptations. So if you guys haven't heard yet, halfway through December 2020, Netflix announced that there will be a Yu Yu Hakusho live-action anime series coming to its platform. Unfortunately, not a lot of information has come out to help fans predict the creative direction of the series, other than that Kazutaka Sakamoto is going to be the executive producer of this project and Akira Modi will be producing at Robot Communications. However, this announcement got me thinking about the purpose of producing these kind of projects and why companies think that this is what anime lovers want to see. I imagine the ideal goal of these projects are to not only celebrate the anime or manga that's being adapted, but to also attract new fans who are not necessarily anime fans. However, given the track record of how most of these projects turn out, it seems like the spirit of what made the original source material great always got lost in translation when the project is finished. With that said, I don't really want to harp on too long about the general negativity of these live-action anime adaptations, since it's pretty much just beating a dead horse at this point. What I do want to focus on though is how these live-action anime adaptations could become better through some simple guidelines I've come up with, even though this is probably going to be a futile effort given that nobody who's working on these projects will ever see this video. Regardless, I still want to humor the idea that my opinions are any help, so here are some do's and don'ts that could help the direction of future projects such as the Yu Yu Hakusho live-action series. Don't be too ambitious. To me, this one is pretty straightforward because one of the first problems that I could see for the Yu Yu Hakusho live-action series is it trying to fit in too much content with a limited episodic run and the story becoming way too convoluted and dumbed down to satisfy anyone, whether they were a fan of the anime or were just curious about it and wanted to check it out. Unless the people working on this live-action series is planning on copying every single episode from the original anime beat by beat, I say just stick to less arcs and try to make the most of what you already have. The Yu Yu Hakusho anime is very long, and I can easily see there being at least 3 seasons for the series if the right amount of arcs is chosen for each season. In this case, I think the first season should cover all the way up to the Maze Castle arc, since all the major characters in Yu Yu Hakusho will have been introduced by then, and seeing them battle the 4 Saint Beasts is a satisfactory way to end the first season. Also, while I realize that it is very tempting to include Toguro as a part of this live-action series since he is the most well-known villain in Yu Yu Hakusho, I personally don't want to see Toguro show up in any promotions or ads for this project at all, since his presence will only signal to me that this whole thing was probably rushed out since he doesn't even show up until way later in the story. The only time I personally want to see Toguro at all is at the end of the first season or as a teaser for another season, which I think will be more than enough to satisfy the fans and make us want more if the first season turns out to be actually good. Do keep the aesthetic. One of my biggest worries for the Yu Yu Hakusho live-action series is how it's going to handle all of the strange and goofy aesthetic choices that made the anime stand out. Yu Yu Hakusho prominently features non-human characters such as all sorts of demons throughout the story, and so because we see them so much, the visual quality of how these demons are brought to life is what I believe will make or break the live-action series. I could be totally wrong, but I can't imagine this project getting a huge budget to go all out where practical effects will be feasible for every single demon featured in this story. So if most of these demons have to be created using CGI, then these demons need to look as good as possible, or else people won't even give the series a chance. Also, I want to add that making Kawenma a child in this live-action series and not copping out to his adult form straight away when he's first introduced is going to get major kudos from me, since it will show me that the people working on this project do respect the original source material. Another thing that I want to see kept into the live action series is to have the story set in the 80s, because I think this part of Yu Yu Hakusho is one of the biggest reasons why it's so appealing to so many people. There are a lot of iconic moments during the first arc of Yu Yu Hakusho that are only memorable because of the time period in which the story takes place. And so I think if the live action series decides to go with a modern take of the setting instead, this decision will take away a lot of the charm that made fans fall in love with the anime in the first place. Plus, the 80s aesthetic is quite relevant now given that pop music has been embracing it again lately, and even Stranger Things, which is one of Netflix's most popular series, was set in the 80s, which makes the decision of whether or not to keep Yu Yu Hakusho in that time period a no-brainer in my opinion. Don't mess too much with the original source material. As much as I would love for the live action series to have a faithful adaptation of the original source material, realistically, I think depending on the budget for this project, there's going to be a lot of stuff that will end up changing to meet those demands, which I am prepared to see. With that said, while the storytelling for Yu Yu Hakusho sometimes requires a suspension of disbelief and is definitely not perfect, especially near the end of the story, I still believe that Togashi provided a good foundation for the live action series to build upon. So if there's going to be any changes to the story at all, then looking out for parts of the story that didn't make sense in the original source material and fixing them for the live action series is where I would advise the majority of changes in the story to be focused on. As of this recording though, there is no announcement of whether or not Togashi will play any role in influencing the creative decisions in this project, but if this project is to succeed, then not changing too much is advised, since the majority of people who would be the first ones to watch this are the original fans of the series. Finally, one of the biggest things the people working on this project need to keep in mind is that nostalgia will play a huge part in why people will want to check out the series in the first place. With that said, unfortunately, I don't believe this series will top the anime or manga. However, my best advice to try and garner some goodwill from the fans are to keep in a lot of the most memorable moments from the anime, which will definitely translate into a better reputation for this live-action anime adaptation. Do capture the heart and spirit of Yu Yu Hakusho. Yu Yu Hakusho was a very important anime for me because it was the first time that I can remember where I decided to consciously watch an anime all the way to the end on my own. A long time ago, my mother had randomly bought a DVD of Yu Yu Hakusho for my brothers and I to watch, which contained a set of episodes from an arc that took place way later in the story, but the constant rotation of this DVD is what sparked my curiosity to see how this anime began in the first place. This was during a time when I was obsessed with playing video games, and my interest in anime didn't seriously go beyond the time when my brothers and I would faithfully watch our Saturday morning cartoons on TV. I don't quite remember exactly how I was mentally processing my feelings about Yu Yu Hakusho when I watched it for the first time, but what I do remember when I watched the Yu Yu Hakusho anime from the beginning to the end is that it started my personal journey into truly falling in love with anime because of the mature and relatable themes that anime stories could bring to the table. The first episode of Yu Yu Hakusho packed a punch by beginning its story differently from any other shonen anime during a time when it was at its peak popularity in the West. After Yusuke Urameshi is introduced and we got to see a glimpse of his troubled home life and his bad reputation whenever he showed up for school, the narrative throws a curveball by killing off Yusuke after he unexpectedly saved a boy who was playing with his ball in the streets. This is when the story starts to get really interesting, as the rest of the episode gives Yusuke a new perspective on how much his life mattered to many people who knew him. In preparation for this video, I watched the anime again in order to refresh my memories of it, and I must say that the first episode of Yu Yu Hakusho still managed to get me emotional, even knowing what was going to happen, which just speaks to how well the writing still holds up. The reason why I'm mentioning this stuff is because in order for the live action series to be ultimately successful, it must show that it understands that Yu Yu Hakusho is more than just about battling cool demons and being the strongest fighter. Yu Yu Hakusho works hard on its sleeves right out of the gate and continued to show throughout its story that it was different from other shonen anime by having Yusuke develop meaningful connections with the people he met when he became a spirit detective, and showing how taking on this job made him a better person in the end. While Yu Yu Hakusho does have some of the most iconic fights in anime history, what I personally adored the most about Yu Yu Hakusho was how it tied together these fights to the growth of characters, and seeing Yusuke in particular grow up as a person through all of his battles made me love this character so much. As a matter of fact, this anime nailed character development so well that I believe it's one of the many reasons why so many people consider Yusuke Urameshi as the greatest shonen protagonist of all time. So if there is any one thing that really helped the live action series gets right in the end, it's that people love Yu Yu Hakusho not only for the incredible fights, but because it never forgets the heart of the story, which is that a person doesn't have to be defined by the circumstances they were born into, and that they have the power to choose a different path and become a better person. So if you guys have anything you want to see make it into the Yu Yu Hakusho live action series, then let me hear your thoughts in the comments below, and also don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. If you guys want to know what I'm going to be doing next, I am currently in the process of making a video about why Goblin Slayer has the best and worst first episode in anime history. So if you guys want to know when that video is coming, then you gotta subscribe to see when it's going to be posted. That is going to be it for me today, guys. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you anime lovers in the next review.